Nancy Pelosi is single-handedly blocking a bill that would expand Social Security and even protect it from being privatized in the future. Now, this is a bill that has widespread support among Democratic lawmakers. Even Biden is urging for the passage of this expansion of Social Security. But Pelosi has decided to block it. And instead, the House has been focusing on, you guessed it, tax cuts for wealthy retirees. Now let's get to the details here. Social Security 2100, the first expansion to the New Deal program in 50 years, would increase all checks by about 2% of the average benefit, offset through a payroll tax on wages above $400,000. The bill, long championed by Representative John Larson and introduced with nearly 200 co-sponsors, was set for a markup by the Ways and Means Committee in late July before House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office axed it. I should also note that the chair for the House Ways and Means Committee is Richard Neal, a Democrat. Remember that name because it's gonna come up again in the future. Now, Wendell Primus, Pelosi's brain, if you want to call it that, on policy matters and a longtime strident expansion opponent, stands in the way. Primus's philosophy is in line with an older generation's belief that Democrats should fight only to maintain the last scraps of the social safety net rather than do anything that might broaden it. So not only is Pelosi pretty terrible when it comes to these issues, her top staffer, this Wendell Primus figure, is against the programs that are wildly popular in this country, like Social Security. And so, of course, he's not gonna wanna beef it up. He's not gonna want to expand it. And he's not gonna want to provide protections to ensure that it isn't privatized in the future. Now, Representative Ro Khanna was pretty furious about this. And while he tends to be a little more friendly in his rhetoric toward corporate Democrats, he didn't hold back in this case. He said, quote, "Someone should tell Wendell that if he really wants to exert this kind of leadership, he ought to try to run for Congress or at least get elected dog catcher first." So Cenk, Pelosi has taken her staffer's advice. She has blocked that bill from coming to fruition, even though it has widespread support. And before we get to the tax cuts for wealthy retirees, I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, look, guys, that's why you gotta watch this show. That's why you gotta read independent media like the American Prospect that broke the story, because you're never gonna get the real story out of corporate media. This is the real story. Gives you a perfect juxtaposition between what Democrats say and what Democrats do. And it also shows you who's guilty and not guilty. For example, John Larson, apparently a wonderful Democrat, and probably doesn't get enough credit. Trying to expand Social Security. Does it make sense in this day and age to bring it up by 2%? Well, of course it does. We have massive inflation. And so everybody's talking about inflation. So you wanna bring up Social Security by 2%? Oh, hell no. What happened? I thought you were concerned about inflation. Oh, you're only concerned about it in relationship to the stock market and how it affects rich people, not how it actually affects American voters. Of course, but give Larson credit. Give Ro Khanna credit. I mean, that's a hell of a quote, man. That's the one quote I underlined in that piece. That is a frontal attack on Nancy Pelosi's top staffer. And so you have to understand, Wendell Primus is one of the most powerful people in all of government, and a person that is almost never talked about. Like corporate media will use the excuse of, well, look, nobody's interested in those little details of the staffers and stuff. Well, it depends, doesn't it? If they're the ones making the decisions, then I think people would be enormously interested. And in the case of a lot of these older politicians, and I'm not saying this to take away any responsibility from Nancy Pelosi, I think she herself is massively corrupt, and we've talked about it many times. And that's why she surrounds herself with corrupt staffers like Wendell Primus. But it's also true that a lot of the Democratic leaders are in their 200s. Right? They're so old. So they hand off decision making to guys like this. And Wendell Primus runs that office. He's also the one that meets with donors. We've covered this in previous stories. So if the drug lobby wants to kill a bill, they invite Wendell Primus. He gets a bag full of checks, he goes home, and then he kills the bill. And that's how this ball game is played. Everything else is theater and nonsense. This is the reality. And that's why the lobbyists win on everything and the American people lose on everything.
So one other note that I should mention, because of course, corporate Democrats have to provide some sort of cover story for why they are destroying any opportunity for good legislation to pass. And so they told Larson that, well, midterms are coming up and some of the Democratic incumbents in these purple districts are concerned that if we expand a very popular retirement program, that it could hurt them. But what's amazing is that is easily debunked because the candidates themselves, the incumbents who are running for re-election themselves, co-sponsored the bill. They want the bill to pass, so that doesn't work. The bill already has the support of a majority of Democratic frontliners, such as Sanford Bishop and Matt Cartwright, who represents a district Trump won by several points. It is the culmination of a 2-decade push to move from a defensive to offensive position on Social Security, not only protecting the program from Republican threats of privatizing it, but also adding to it, right? Now, let's get to what's really going on, okay? What the real focus is here. And the fact of the matter is, anytime something comes up that would actually help wealthy people, in this case, wealthy retirees, they don't hesitate. So what Richie Neal, who's the head of the House Ways and Means Committee, is working on right now is essentially increasing the amount that individuals can contribute to their 401k. And that overwhelmingly benefits wealthy people because they're the ones who have the funds to max out their 401k. And if you have a traditional 401k, what that ends up doing is when you're contributing to it, the amount you contribute to it is not taxed. It could lower your tax liability because it could even, in some cases, take you to a lower tax bracket, right? So you actually end up saving money on your taxes by contributing as much as possible to a traditional 401k. And so Richie Neal is focusing right now on increasing the amount that rich retirees can contribute to 401k programs. The other thing I should mention is that Democrats have assisted Republicans on a win. They helped Republicans pass a retirement-related bill that's actually very popular with labor unions. And so I want to talk about that. As Larson's bill was being sidelined, another Social Security bill sponsored by Republican Representative Rodney Davis earned enough bipartisan support to bypass markup, and he fast-tracked for a vote. Davis's bill, the Social Security Fairness Act, would repeal the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset, which prevent public servants in states with special pension plans from getting Social Security benefits. And while labor unions are gonna celebrate this and government workers are gonna celebrate it as well, because they might qualify for this, for what this legislation entails, there are substantive concerns with Davis's bill. It is not paid for, so the addition of public sector pensioners could actually cost the Social Security Trust Fund as much as $147 billion, according to Larson. Ironically, he said that could, over time, decrease benefits across the board for Social Security recipients. It's just infuriating, absolutely infuriating.
Yeah, so I want to draw your, so of course, what happens? It's what we predict all the time. If you watch this show, isn't it amazing that you know what's gonna happen before it happens? Or maybe it's not amazing at all. The journalism is actually super, super simple. Just follow the money. The lobbyists wanted the second provision that Anna told you about to pass, mainly not because it helps the wealthy, yeah, that's important, but because it gets the people who run the mutual funds more money. They make way more money, including incredibly influential companies like BlackRock. So once they send in the lobbies, it's over, that's gonna pass. So that gets to one of the first points that Anna mentioned. John Larson has been told to go to markup. If you watch the election coverage we had the other night, Congressman Jamal Bowman was on, and he talked about this issue. He said, whenever there's a progressive priority, they tell you that it's got to go through this process, and it's got to get marked up, okay? And that's when they go through committees, they mark up the bill, they change it, and they're like, there's no way around it. It's got to go through markup, and it'll sit in markup for years and years, right? But whenever lobbyists want something, as Congressman Bowman explained, it flies through, there's no markup. And so when the rich wanted something, it fixed the Social Security, it flew right past markup. Okay, why? Because the most corrupt are the ones at the top. And that's not an accident. So remember Mo Brooks, the Republican House member, explained on the campaign trail. In order to be a committee chair like Richie Neal is in the House, you have to get at least $1 million and give it to your Democratic Party committee or Republican Party committee, right? And where do you get the $1 million? Mo Brooks explained, you get it from the industry most affected by your committee. So the more corrupt you are to serve the corporate interests that are affected by your committee, the more likely you are to be the leader of that committee. Now take that and multiply it by 20 and you'll know who's the leader of the party. So Pelosi and McConnell and Schumer are the most corrupt because they've collected the most amount of money and they've collected it from corporate interests, and that's who they're going to represent. So the thing that would have helped you this year, senior citizens, Pelosi made the decision to bury the thing that would help rich people. She made the decision to elevate that and pass it. It's not a coincidence. That's exactly what's supposed to happen. And this is exactly how we all get robbed on a daily basis in Congress. And the people driving the getaway car is corporate media that never lets you know about it.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.